All right, Dom. Appreciate you getting on here. I know we've been chatting a little bit here before we started and catching up a little bit, but like I said, I do appreciate it. It's kind of been a long time. We've been talking about this for probably a year or so since I really kind of started kicking off the podcast a little bit.
Yeah,
So I'm excited to get you on here. And I like to always kind of start off giving everybody a little bit of a background about how we know each other, and it's kind of cool because a lot of people that are going to listen, a lot of the direct people that are going to listen to this are familiar with pro because they've either interned at pro or worked
yeah,
at pro while they're working with me at Fairmont or vice versa. But yeah, we started off at pro. I think you were there a couple, I don't know, you'd been there for maybe like a couple months to a year or so before I started back
yeah.
2000, when was that? 2014, something like that.
Oh,
Crazy,
wow.
something like
We're
that.
aging ourselves a little bit
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah, I know. So, but we had met and kind of hit it off right out of the gate. And obviously we both, working with Ryan and everything. We kind of had a really good crew, and we were talking about this before we hopped on here and went live. Like, man, like the two most like athletic, fittest, whatever you want to call it, like times that I've been in my life, it
Yeah,
was aside from maybe my senior year in wrestling, but like in terms of like having to do shit on my own, was when we were training and we started really diving into like the West Side conjugate style training. That's
yeah,
definitely like one of the strongest, if not the strongest I'd been. And then now because I get to work with all these young guys, keeping me trying to keep me young and trying to beat me all the time in sprints and jumps and all this stuff and out squat and out
yeah,
deadlift me. Like it's definitely one of those things that like those are right now and then back then. And I really do. I'm really like grateful of that time that we got to spend together. And one thing I always hype you up anytime your name gets brought up in terms of training. I never saw you miss a lift. There was
Thank
one
you.
time that I think there was one time when I think you maybe it was like a snatch or a clean or something that you missed it, but you were like, fuck, I'm gonna turn it back on. I'm gonna do it again. You
Yeah,
actually hit it. Like I never saw you miss a deadlift. I never saw you miss a squat. Never saw you miss
yeah,
like a fucking bench. So I don't know if you were just sandbagging or you just had that dog where you just weren't missing anything,
yeah.
but that's
No,
something
man,
that
I
I definitely
appreciate
remember
it.
that. So, but
Yeah,
I appreciate being on here, and I'm kind of looking forward to catching up a little bit.
yeah, man. The pleasure is mine. People listening. Adam is probably the one of the smartest people that I've met, and especially in strength and conditioning. But if you talk to him, you wouldn't think this guy knows too much. He's a West Virginia guy. He's got that accent, but man, you are to this day. I still brag about you and what you've taught me, man, and how that's played such a huge role in my strength and conditioning round. Especially at that time. And I really never heard of Westside Barbell until you, and you kind of introduced me to that whole world. And to be quite frank, that is the basis of every strength and conditioning program that I've written for the last 10 years, man. So big ups to you, man. And I still talk about that whenever we were deadlifting on that platform. And I think I pulled something, and you said that, like, man, I've never seen you miss a deadlift. And in my head, I've never forgot that. And I was like, you know what? I'll never miss another deadlift in my life. So I appreciate you, man. So honestly, this friendship has been about 10 years plus, and it's been one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And part of what you said, like, I don't know if I'm really that smarter. I think part of it is, I think, and we were talking about this too, and I think it goes back to something that I tell my young coaches, like, I've just never stopped training. Like,
Yeah,
the only way that you can learn is like, you got to keep training. Like, the minute you stop training, the minute you stop learning. Like, you can read all
yeah,
the books that you want, and you can have all the science and all the knowledge, but if you can read about force plates, but if you're not like jumping on a force plate and
yeah,
understanding what certain training modalities do, if you're you can read about getting people faster, but if you don't actually try to get yourself faster or apply those things to the athletes that you're working with, like it doesn't really matter. So like to me, the
yeah,
the training is the most important factor. Like I'll never be as good of an athlete as most of our football, basketball, baseball
yeah,
kids that we have here at Fairmont, but it's one of those things where like the reason I'm able to make them a little bit better is because of the training. And again, a lot of that started with just us being at pro and really wanting to push each other and have fun and compete. So, um,
absolutely.
so tell everybody right now a little bit about your background. So I know I got on my notes. Obviously, I know you played football at Shepherd,
Yeah,
and you kind of went to pro, and then you were dabbling a little. We were training together. You're also kind of dabbling a little bit in CrossFit. You got into the
yeah,
conjugate style training, um, and then you obviously started your online business. But kind of take us back a little bit and kind of give
yeah.
us like bring us like as up to speed as quickly or as long as you want to go about going from being a college football player to kind of what your current role and responsibilities are.
Yeah, for sure, man. But yeah, you touched on it. I played college football. That's kind of where everything kind of started. I think everybody's played high school sports. So I started college. I was blessed, man, to get a full ride scholarship to Shepherd University for football and played 4 years there. And honestly, man, I had the time of my life just being able to compete at high levels, national rankings with some of the best that honestly were, it sounds crazy, but too dumb to play D1. That's what I said. But man, it was an honor to have a free education, to play in some really big title games and just to, overall build that character with some really good people and a really good program. And a part of our curriculum was actually to finish with exit internship, which brings me to Pro Performance, where you and I had connected. And at the time, man, I was just, like most people, getting done playing ball, still chasing the pro dream. So training football specific on the side, and then doing an internship. At the time, I thought it was just kind of like fluff work. Didn't think much of it. And in that time, I fell in love with the relationships with the clients. So like shadowing trainers like yourself and watching how, you know, that trainer was able to change that person's day, whether they came in sour mood or, so on and so forth. And then also you get a chance to work with athletes and you kind of put yourself in their shoes. You're like, I remember when I had a coach who cared like this guy does, and watching them train and watching them get faster, get stronger, and then kind of having that hand on the nozzle, like, hey, I can help be a part of this, is how I fell in love with training, man. Which is funny because when I was an athlete, the weight room was just another thing I had to do. I didn't look at it like an opportunity, which is probably a lot of reasons why I fell short of fulfilling the childhood dream of playing professional. But yeah, man, I dive into training when I started changing my own body. Like going back to what you said, I think I've been my best client to date. Like just experiment with different programs and being able to see how I respond, and you size up other people that you train, and you kind of are able to be your own guinea pig, and try out methodologies, try out principles, and then from it you kind of establish your own. So for me, doing that at pro was really where I built the basis of who I am today as a strength and conditioning coach. And then you played a huge role, like I said, in that, and teaching me the foundations of the conjugate method, working on Westside barbell work, the different methodologies within Westside. Like Westside has its basis, but you have all these different, methodologies within Westside, which is cool. And you opened me up to that. And like I said, like you said, when we were working out together, you get a chance to really like get after it. Like multiple trainers in the same room that are not necessarily speaking the same language but on the same page, it's huge. I think that's one of the biggest benefits that we had for as a training staff, is like you looked up and you saw people doing different but similar movements and different but similar methods. It really made us a strong team. Like I think we did a really good job at building athletes and general population coming outwards, which I still preach about that now, man, being on a new team. But I did that, unfortunately left pro and was in the CrossFit, got in the CrossFit space. And then, like most things, I got really addicted to the camaraderie of it, like competing, feeling like I was an athlete again, even though CrossFit is like workout specific. It was really cool just kind of like get the heart rate up and chase and challenge people. So I did that for a while, and it helped build me as what I like to call as like a durable athlete. Like I was able to pretty much get to dark places of suffrage while still maintaining good form and a really good aerobic system. I like to think I'm the big guy who can move well and breathe heavy. So that's something that helped me, and it helped me kind of fill in the gaps and build a business off of that, with seeing the deficits and all the holes within CrossFit and seeing how strength and conditioning can merge. So with that, Brick Built was kind of like born, which is my online business that I started back in 2018. It's really started rolling 2017, 2018. And I was able to really just kind of put out what I was doing on my own with training and experimenting with strength and conditioning, kind of like developing that athlete CrossFit blend. And people responded, man. I was really lucky that people kind of took a liking to it online. And from there, I kind of like started helping people on the side. At the time, I didn't have an actual like training job where I was working in four walls outside of coaching CrossFit. So that was my way to kind of stay in the game as a personal trainer, like in like a very vague way of saying being a personal trainer. I was able to still do strength conditioning with people that I honestly have never met. I mean, you're talking about people that lived in China, lived in Dubai, lived in Australia, which the power of the internet. I got really lucky at a time where social media was taking off, and I, just kept putting out content that I was doing. Nothing that I was doing was like fake or in the sense of like me trying to be trendy. It was really just stuff that I was experimenting with, things that I have done from my past training, my athletic days, CrossFit. And I just started giving out free information, free educational pieces, for the general public. And like I said, people took a liking to it. And from there, I kind of built a brand with the way I train, the way I live my life, the way I kind of kept, you know, um, things consistent on the surface level for most people. So from there, it kind of morphed into online personal training, which now everybody in their bio says click for this ebook. I thought I was one of the people who kind of started doing that at an early age. And that helped me kind of just cultivate a dependable platform for me to basically log all my workouts. That's what it would have turned into. It's like I'm able to log my training in real time and not feel like I have to be inconsistent. It's almost like an accountability factor for me. And it's crazy. Like when you're working out and you're not recording your workout, you almost feel like you're working out alone. The platform gave me an opportunity to work out with thousands of people all over the world. And people DMing me every day, hey, did your workout? Did this workout? Hey, try this for the next workout. So it became a community. And even now to this day, I still treat it so. But it gave me, put me in a room with a lot of cool people, a lot of cool experiences, traveling, doing photo shoots, doing video shoots. Like I said, meeting some really cool people. And that fast forwarded me to um, my current thing now, where I work with another team for the first time in probably 6 or 7 years, where I'm on another staff like daily. Like I've worked in CrossFit gyms everywhere I've lived, but this is the first time in 6 or 7 years that I've actually been on a training staff again, working with general public, having direct clientele. It's a new thing I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 months. It's been great. There's obviously some growing pains with that, and you almost feel like sometimes you're regressing. But now I'm at Barrows Performance in Deerfield Beach, kind of still staying true to my principles, staying true to my methods that I've learned, and also gathering information as I go and translating that into my clients, my athletes, so on and so forth, man. But it's been a great journey. I'm excited to keep going.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple, I mean, a lot of things that you said that stood out. But the one thing that you said that I've thought about it, but I've never said it to myself or thought about it that way, where you were like, you were your own like client, like you've been your own client. And that's basically what we were saying at the
Yeah,
beginning about training. But like, I've never thought about it like that of like, yeah, you kind of are like, we're the only ones that really know. Like when we write something down on a training program, like even if we're trying to write it for somebody else, we're really thinking of it in the terms of like, well, how would I respond to this? How would I
yeah,
like this? How would I like that? Like,
exactly.
like
Yeah,
there's always that inherent bias, and like we wouldn't have those if we didn't know how to train ourselves already. So I think
yep,
that's huge. And then yeah, you definitely you mentioned like the social media thing, like starting an online business in personal training business in 2017, 18 was almost like the perfect time. Unless you're like Mike Boyle and you started it back in like 2010, like 2018,
yeah,
19 would have been the best time because of COVID. Like you were able to,
yeah,
like people weren't able to go to somewhere in public and train all over the
yeah,
world. So like it was like you kind of hit that like right at the right before the peak of all that, which is
yeah.
awesome. One thing I wanted to ask, and I don't know if this is like appropriate to ask or not, but like at its peak, what was the most amount of like clients, I guess, or the most amount of people that were in the community that you had at one time?
Yeah, man, it's actually a really good question. At its peak, and this is kind of when I started to change the way I did everything, was I had in my training coach platform, I think I had 48 or 49 people in rotation. Out of those 48 or 49 people, I probably had close to 35 that were on like individualized programs. So you could imagine, like I was obviously extremely busy, but it got to the point where I just became this like Google document machine. Like, I mean, I'm pumping out like reading questionnaire, creating a program, like doing those like nonstop, like to the point where I mean, I'm working 9, 10 o'clock at night, getting up. Like I had like a steady routine, but it was to the point where I felt as if I was dissociated from training. As busy as I was, I felt like I just became this format creator of like this is how we do a program. Create it, proofread it, upload it, proofread it again, send it out. And I'm doing that. I'm filming videos. It just like it becomes this huge mess. Before, like now where I'm sure people who do this can have like generators that just do it for them. This is at a time where like you have to type everything, you have to create
Right.
everything, you have to
You
proofread
you weren't
everything.
using you weren't able to like at that time you weren't using like a Train Heroic app or Team Builder.
Yeah, I was using so the way I did it was I did what's it called? Google, not Google, yeah, Google Slides. So this is like at a time where I was like building, right? So like this is before I started doing using True Coach. I used True Coach probably midway, like as I was like coming out of the peak. I stumbled upon True Coach and I was able to upload everybody in the True Coach. But still, like I'm at the time, I'm still doing everything Google Docs because that was the way I programmed. Was I
Right.
would Google Doc the program, 6 week block, and then from there I'm uploading it in the True Coach. So that gave me the time to proofread, to and I would always do it like I would do all my Google Docs in one day. and then wait a day and then upload the next day. So therefore, it gave me an opportunity to see if I was repeating movement patterns, if I was double dipping, if I was staying true to my methodologies of training. And it just kind of gave me like a chance, almost like to revisit the painting, right? Like you're painting one day, you're like, oh, this feels good. You take a step back, you're like, this looks terrible. So like for me, it gave me an opportunity to do that. It just also created more work for myself. But I wouldn't change it because it made me understand that, good things do take time and it's going to take a lot of time. At the time where I thought I was building this huge empire that I'd open up a brick and mortar one day and I'd laugh about these days where I'm sitting on my little Google Doc and my iPad just typing away. But it consumed me. I got to the point where I felt like I was just going in the gym, working out, pressing record, taking those videos, uploading to YouTube to True Coach to my athletes. It was like nonstop. Like you're talking about like hours of the day.
Yeah.
I got really good at it, which is nice, but it
Well,
also took a lot of the time.
I think it's something that like, and I'm not trying to, I want to say this and be like, again, I don't want to sound like I'm being at all like disrespectful, but I think people sometimes think that like being like a social media influencer is like, it's easy. Now, maybe to be honest with you, maybe if you're a female, it might be a tad bit easier. Like,
it's
to be honest,
easier for sure.
but like,
yeah,
no matter what, like there is an inherent like just time commitment of recording videos. Cause even if you record every video, like you're recording like, all right, I'm gonna demonstrate a front squat. Like that front squat video might only take 10 seconds to record, and you might get it on the first shot, and it might be the perfect angle, the perfect lighting, the perfect rep, everything's right. But it's not just 10 seconds. Like it's all the preparation goes into it. It's like, all right, here's how I'm gonna record it, here's how I'm gonna upload it, here's how I'm gonna post it. And again, it's no different than these podcasts. Like these podcasts, the easiest part of these podcasts is talking for an hour. Like that's the easiest part, right?
Yeah.
The hard part is like getting it on YouTube, typing all the stuff, reaching out to people. Like, I mean, it's one of the things where I've reached out to mostly people in my network, but there's a scary aspect of like reaching out to people that you've never met before and asking them, hey, will you come and like talk to me for an hour and a half on the internet? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those where like there's an aspect, especially I think a lot of times you see it in like the college strength coach world, where like people are like, oh, like screw social media, like I don't want to do that, I don't want to be a social media influencer, and like I've definitely felt those feelings at times. But it's one of those where like you can't diminish the amount of work that goes into it, and that it is a full-time job. It is not easy. It may get easier with like you said, some of the technology and AI and some of that coming out now and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be easier to like individualize programming, but not from 2017 to 2025. It's really not significantly easier. So yeah, I want to make sure, number one, like that people understand it's not just like, it's not easier. Like it's not any easier. Like you're still writing programs, you're still doing stuff. But sorry, Coach Anderson, right? For our Fairmont, the basketball coach.
Steph?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was she doing there?
She just peeked her head in at me. I'm in the film room. I'm in our
are you awesome? Yeah, give my love to Steph, and we go way back.
Yeah, she's awesome. We're that's our, hopefully our other coaches listen to this. She's the best coach we have on campus, like to work with and culture wise and everything. She's awesome.
That's one of the best people I've met. She's been consistent since I think we met back in freshman year of high school. Actually, no, I take it back. We go back to middle school. Yeah. She went to South, I went to Westwood. She's really good people. She comes from a good family too.
Yeah. No, speaking of Westwood, actually, this is completely unrelated, but we were kind of talking about this beginning, where me and Shala we're trying to buy a new townhouse in Morgantown, and we're actually there's a new development right up by Skyview Elementary and Westwood Middle.
Really?
So we're gonna be West Side. There
you go. West Side, baby. That's where it's at. That's the best athletes.
Anyways, yeah, like I think it's something that people like look at the online thing as like, it's easier. Like you don't have to like go into work. You get to work from home every day. You don't have to change out of your PJs. It's like, like that might sound good, but try it. Like even with me, like I write very few like individualized training programs for people that aren't athletes at Fairmont. And I mean, it's still every 4 to 6 weeks, whenever I have to redo a program for them, like it's still a pain in the butt. Like, and it's an agreed upon pain in the butt. Like I know, like I want to do it. I want to help them, but it's one of those where like, it's not just easy. Like, even though we have Train Heroic and we have team builders and apps like that, like there's still a process and it still takes time. Like it's still, it's not just like plug and play as people make it sound like. One of the things that you mentioned was like your kind of philosophies and like your kind of pillars of training. Like, is there a way that you can concisely, or I guess as long as you want to elaborate, like what are those pillars? What kind of things do you kind of stand by? And especially, and we'll go back to like the Barwis aspect of those things and being back
Yeah.
in kind of like a coaching staff kind of situation, like a training staff situation. But when you were, especially as Brick Built, like what was Brick Built's like mantra, and what were kind of your like training philosophies when you started Brick Built?
Yeah, yeah, great question, man. I actually, in preparation to this, for the first time in a long time, like went back and revisited some of the old stuff I typed and wrote out. And I just good because it kind of made me restructure it. And the best way, man, I could describe Brick Built has always been something that was like for me was like my baby. Like I kind of like built it, and but it's nothing new under the sun, man. Like it's the same exact format that thousands and thousands of coaches have used before. I just put my name on it, right? Like I put my Brick Built name on it, but and it's just like movement first philosophy. Like I always look at movements. I look at movement patterns is my biggest thing. I look at like progression. That's my biggest thing. I look at is like movement progression, keeping the athletic aspect of everything, like more of like people call it hybrid in so many different ways, and they throw that word around. But all hybrid is an athlete, like athletes who depending on the sport, you're hybrid. Like you're a hybrid athlete. I'm a hybrid athlete, meaning that we do not move in just one motion. We do not have one demand. So people can call it what they want. I think that's something that I always have stood next to. The word functional gets thrown around a lot, but I think every single thing you do is functional. I try to be as symmetrical as I can with everything I do when training. I hope these are answering the question. These are just like the buzzwords that I've used for training, and even some of my notes. Like I've always been less is more, even from early days, man. I don't know if that's like I think I was doing it before I even knew less is more was a thing because I was lazy. I felt like when I trained, I was lazy when I trained. So for me, it was like, how can I recover faster, right? To do less. And it sounds crazy, but that theory of like less is more is something that I really lean into. So even when like the way I kind of judge it is like when I do something or I write something, and if I have that thought of like that was good, and then I have another thought to add something else, then I put the pen down because I'm like me adding something else. It's just me adding on more. Like I know by now, it's kind of like when you're adding too much to a program. You're adding too much to a workout. You're like probably shouldn't have did that. Oh, probably shouldn't have did that last superset or last set, whatever. There's times where you kind of dabble in, you push the line, right? But for me, it's always been less is more. Um, and the last one, man, is just keeping things simple. Like I keep it as simple as I can because with me keeping things in a simplistic way, I'm able to be more creative later, right? Like I get, like I'm sure you when you're working out with yourself, you kind of get like this training ADHD where you want to experiment and try all these cool things that you have thought of in the middle of the night, or when you're hanging out in the weight room all day, you kind of look at this piece of equipment that you looked at 5 times and be like, I bet I could do something else with that. I love keeping things simple in the beginning so that whenever it comes to that third or fourth set, I can twist it. I can change the variation, which is why people see on Instagram, they think, oh, you do all these creative movements. Well, you don't see my first 3 sets that are a basic lunge. You see the cool twisting lunge, rotational lunge that I do at the end. So for me, man, I stay to those bases of movement. Um, I do balance, like the balance training, meaning I keep it as symmetrical as I can, touching every plane. The 60-40 rule of like if I'm frontal plane for 40, the posterior is 60. Like I keep it that much as I can. And I do less is more, simple training, and more of a hybrid method. So that's about the best way I can prescribe Brick Built is
Yeah,
those philosophy, those pillars. But the philosophies, man, like the principles have always been like the conjugate method. Like you've taught me, like those bases of like you got your 20% is your primary, 80% is your accessory work. And I've stood by that from the day I started writing individual programs. Right after you left, I started training everybody that way because I thought it was just genius of like something that's so simple. Like the 80 takes care of the 20. So kudos to you. Hat out to you, man. You taught me that simple thing. I'll never forget it. We were across your room and you wrote it on the whiteboard. And you said, "This is 20%. This is 80%." I'm like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" And then you broke it down, and I was like, "That is strength conditioning for dummies. Like that's
yeah,
perfect, right?" So yeah, man, that's basically the principles I stand by is like the conjugate principles, and then I changed my method. So I'm not married to any method, but I am married to my principles of how I train.
yeah. No, I get a ton of information there, and a lot of stuff that I also do the same thing. Like I'm one of those where and we talked about private facilities. Like I remember walking into the one private gym I worked at in Florida and thinking this place was going to be amazing. And I walk in, we got like 8-year-olds trying to do push-ups on like Bosu balls. And like, I'm like, what are we doing? These kids
Wow.
can't do regular body weight push-ups. Like,
Thank you.
why are we giving them the last level of this exercise as their starting
Yeah.
point? Because like
Yep.
it's silly. So it's one of those where like I'm big on that too. I'm like, it's if you can't front squat and you can't RDL, then you shouldn't be able to be doing a power clean because
Never.
you haven't learned A
Yep.
and B and you're worried about X, Y, and Z. So I'm
Yep.
definitely big on that. And like even the minimal effective dose thing, like you know, you're saying like the lowest amount of work possible to get the biggest output. Like that's exactly what
Yeah.
it is. Especially in the college world where like we're in season, like you know, you played football in season. Like
Yeah.
the last thing you want to do in football season when it's like game 9, game 10, game 11
Yeah.
is going and do like 8 sets of squats. Like why would
Exactly.
we do eight
Yep.
sets of squats when we can get the same stimulus with less stress at 4 sets of squats? Like let's just be
Yep.
better. Like one of the things that I tell my guys all the time, I'm big on, and I'm sure I stole this from I don't know Dan John or somebody. Like do less better. Like that's really what we do. Do less better.
Yep.
Like
That's exactly right.
and
I
so
love
if we
that.
can't do that, and the other thing that you mentioned that I don't necessarily I don't run into this issue as much anymore, but I definitely used to, and I think a lot of young coaches run into this issue. Is you know you're writing a training program and you're like, all right, I got 1 through 5 of what I wanted to get done and accomplish, but that's only going to take 30 minutes, but the lift's 45 minutes, so I'm just going to add an extra fluff, and it's like, yeah, but that's defeating the point. Like let's just get
Yeah.
better. Let's take a longer
Yeah.
rest period. Let's bump up the percentage. Let's make sure that
Yep.
we're giving actual good effort and good intent behind the things that we needed to get done. Don't just find stuff to do just for the sake of doing it, because at some point that's not really what the point of all this is. Like now
Yep.
that doesn't mean that, like you mentioned, the 20-80 like percent thing, like that doesn't mean that 80% that we can't still add some stuff if it's beneficial and fill
Yeah.
in that last, to make it the 80% of the volume. But yeah, I mean, it's, I look at that with football again, like in season, I don't have the ability with our guys, the amount of time that I spend with them. We don't have time to do 80% of the
Yeah.
work. Like we're
Yep.
doing the 20% that's the most important, and then that's it. Like
That's all you need to do.
I get them 45 minutes twice a week. So it's like one of those
Yeah.
things where like that's all we got. Now in the spring, like yeah, that 80%, we can definitely like we can make guys, be sore as shit
Yeah.
the next day. Like we can do that. So that's something too that like I think people forget is they get caught up in like, and especially my young coaches, GAs, interns, like they get caught up in like writing the perfect training program. And it's like, look, just find 1 or 2 things that you want them to get good at today and just focus on that. And then
Yeah.
everything else is just a formality at that point. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But,
I
um,
need to clip that last part you just said, and I need you to send me that because there's about 15 or 20 coaches that I can send that to right now. Like it's people, we got to talk about that a little bit more. Like the dragging it out to make it an hour, to make it an hour and a half. Like I think there's not enough coaches that are thinking the way that you're describing it. It's like do less better. Like that's such a unique way of putting it. That's so simple. But like I got guys now that I work with, and no shade or no negativity. I'm like they're younger, so they're like you can see it. Like you get that. I call it like the puppy dog. Like you're leading your client around the gym. Oh, let's go here. Oh, let's go over here. Let's go.
mhm,
And it's like you're scrambling at that point because you're like
yeah,
looking at the clock. Like I got 20 minutes left. I'm one of those people like when I write the workout and I teach like some of the adult classes now, and sometimes we'll get done 45, 50 minutes, and then some of my coworkers like, "You're already done." I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "A good workout,
yeah,
I don't need 60 minutes for a general population who has to go back to work in the next 30 minutes. Like, I don't need to they
right,
should be on the floor And I think there's a lot of people who do that where they're like, "I got to fill the hours, I got to be in the gym for an hour and a half. I got to do, I've got to train them for an hour. It's like, no, you can do so much more. Like, work on better prep work.
yeah,
Work on, a decent warm up. Do actual interval rest times. Like work on tempo. Add these different things that if you want to make it longer, how about make it more intentional? Like that's what I can do a
yeah,
great 35-minute workout with intention before I do an hour and a half workout with no intention. So
yeah.
I
No,
think,
I agree.
I want to elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, and the other thing with that is like, especially with like general pop, and honestly, even to an extent, some of the athletes here, and it's no disrespect towards our athletes, but we're not getting professional athletes. Like, we're getting kids that have maybe never trained in their life before. So like a 30-minute training session for like a golfer or a cross country athlete, or even like a one of some of our female athletes, like a women's tennis player, like they've never touched a weight before. So like them
Yeah,
coming in and doing 5 sets of 5 on front squat and a couple plyometrics and pull-ups and push-ups like that
yeah,
that might only take them 30 minutes, but like that's all they need. And the other
that's
thing
all I
is
need.
they have to go out and play a sport later that day. Like so it's one of those
Yep,
things where like we're just trying to give them enough stimulus to over the next 4 years get better at at
Yeah.
their sport. There's nothing that we're going to do today that's going to make them better at their sport tomorrow. Like it's not going to
Yeah.
happen in a 24 or 48 hour window. It's not going to happen in one semester, maybe a little bit in a semester, but it's more about playing the long game. And
Yeah.
what you said about the general pop, like those people have to like go home and like walk their dog and cook dinner and pick up their kid and
Yeah.
like maybe
Hmm.
play like freaking football in the backyard with their kid. Like
Yeah.
they don't like as somebody now that has a kid, like I don't want to do anything in the weight room. Everything that I do in the weight room is like still about athletic development, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But like none of that should ever just like I would never want a football player to do something in the weight room that doesn't allow him to go out and practice or play the game the next day.
Yes.
I don't want to do
Exactly.
anything in the weight room right now. And I'm going to have to probably start modifying stuff even more than I have eventually.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything in the weight room right now that I can't go home. And if Ruby wants to like me to like push her on her bike, like I can't push her on a
Yeah.
bike. You know what I mean? Like I need to be
Exactly.
able to still
Yep.
function. So that extra 15 minutes or that extra like finisher or that thing that's going to like make me sore the next day going up and down steps. Now, again, I think some people do want to feel sore. Like I like feeling sore every once in a
Yeah.
while. It's fine.
Yeah.
But is it sustainable? Like you can't feel sore all the time. Like at some
Yeah.
point you're going to get either burnout, you're going to get injured, you're going to get overused, like you're just going to get
Yeah.
mentally fatigued. Like so there is an aspect of like you gotta give the athlete and the client what they want and what they
Hmm.
need. But if you can do it in 45 minutes, why do you need the
Yeah.
extra 5 to 10 minutes? Like that's a chance to build a connection with them and talk to them and save that
Yeah.
5 minutes to like get to know
Ex-
them a little bit more and be like, hey,
Yeah.
what do you think about this? What's the schedule for the rest of the week?
Yeah.
What's your kids soccer team? How are they doing? Like that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like that's where like you have
Absolutely.
a little bit more of that built in or talk to them about nutrition or sleep or whatever it
Yeah.
may be. Um, so you mentioned being at Barwis now for a couple months. Like
Yeah.
what's something that like from a private being back in the private facility, what's something that you kind of like maybe forgot about or like you're like, oh man, I forgot like how whether it's like clients canceling on your bad stuff or
Yeah.
good stuff. Like, oh man, I forgot,
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
you mentioned, like, oh man, I forgot how cool it is to be around a bunch of like other hungry, like young coaches, strength coaches.
Yeah.
Like what are some things maybe that having been out of the private sector and getting back into it now, and being around other people and kind of having like a steady, like in-person clientele base, like what are some of the things that have kind of stood out that you're like maybe forgot about or just kind of maybe even took for granted or like missed out on a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah, man, I'll definitely start with the last point. Like, I think what I took for granted was the camaraderie and the relationships with the clients. Like, I honestly cannot tell you how excited I am to, to see majority of my clients when they come in, they light up, I light up. It's like you get that, like, how it is. Like when you walk in, like your teammate, your boys that you train, and some of the athletes you have, you're like, you get so like, Coach AK, I'm sure they're so excited. And I think I took for granted that because when you do it for so long and you do it somewhere that you may not be happy, you kind of dread sometimes that class or that client you have. You're like, oh, man, I got to go back, so on and so forth. So I think for me, that was the first thing I kind of really got excited about was like getting a new client and then, that first week with them. And you get to the end of the week, you're like, tell me, what you think, like how you feel. And then they're like, man, oh, I loved it. And that, even though it's like a little selfish to be like, I was a part of that, but it just feels so good to help change somebody's day. And you literally are just providing them with sets and reps. Like you're not doing brain surgery. You're not healing them. You're literally giving them a different stimulus than they probably what they're used to. And you're bringing good energy. You're staying upbeat. You're motivating them in the workout. You're leading them. So for me, that was so cool to get back into and getting a pretty cool clientele. Here, you got a unique way of. It's a unique facility where you're going to see a lot of different moving pieces, right? Like Mike's big on the neurological side, so they do a lot of neurological training and a lot of like you get a lot of patients with CP or been in car accidents. So I don't have a really hand in that. I shadowed a little bit of it when I first started and had to do some of the manual work, which is cool because you learn a lot about manual work, which I, probably never did manual work ever. So that was really cool to see. And then I kind of like went back into my athletes and general pop bag. But that's really cool to kind of see people who you don't have aren't as fortunate as we are health wise to come in every day and they're super excited and they're in a wheelchair. So that was cool to get a chance to know them and like the camaraderie, man. Like I haven't been on an actual team outside of like CrossFit coaches, which the turnover rate is insane in a CrossFit gym. So that was always great. I no shade from there, but being on the actual training team where you're with some strength and conditioning coaches, and you're talking shop, and you're how it is when you're in a facility and you see a guy that you admire their training style, you get a chance to I want to try that exercise out on myself, and then maybe some of my clients. So that's been cool because the brain starts to work again, right? I'm in an environment where it's not necessarily competitive, but I don't even know the word you would use to describe it, but your juices get flowing again. You're like, man, like this is where I feel good. This is back to my home. So for me, the first 2, 3 weeks, I was like kind of rusty, right? I'm like, oh man, like I don't remember how to do rest times correctly because you're online, you write it, and you hope they stick to it, right? Like I'm pumping out programs to people. I'm like, all right, 90 seconds, 2 minute breaks. That you hopefully they're following it, but you can't tell, right? You can't tell. But when you're there in person, you're like, all right, I get to monitor the rest time. I get to work on the better prep work. Like, although moving a little tighter, with their hip today, I can do a little bit more external rotation work. So that I did miss a lot. But the bad things I didn't like, I cannot stand canceling. I can't stand tardiness. Adam, that makes me so angry. I forgot how much that used to drive me crazy. Because when you're at a facility, man, you're there already. So like you are doing your thing with if you got back-to-back sessions, you end the first session probably 2 to 3 minutes early. So you have transition time to get your head right, and then you start session two. When you end that training session and you're 10 minutes late, and that leads into the next session, and then the next session,
Yep.
you're looking at your day, you got like 10-hour training day. You're like, oh, here we go. I mean, they cancel last minute, and it's like you get these weird gaps. So I can honestly say with honesty, I've been doing this 11 years. I hate the structure of personal training. The fact that you have people who aren't as reliable as you, you got classmates that come late, people who come new and want to jump into class. It's just like you got these weird things that you that eat at you a little bit. And the one unique thing about that Barrows gym that I've never been in is that they make my schedule. I don't make my schedule. So that's something that I'm very, very new to. Like I'm not the biggest fan of it. In all honesty, I can say that even if somebody was listening, I prefer to have control of my own schedule. I think when you have a gym that operates off of like administration, like I don't do any marketing. I don't have to market myself. I don't have to go get clients. They do all that stuff for you. So thus they make the schedule based off of your availability. And I could block off hours and be like, all right, I don't want to be bookable for these hours. And then the rest of my schedule is my schedule. So that's something I'm very new to. I'm trying to get used to. And then obviously, like little growing pains, like you got to deal with administration. You got to deal with admin stuff. I do like the fact that I don't have to charge people. Like that's something that I had to do as an entrepreneur, collecting money. Hey, your payments due. That stuff is always like weird when you ask people for money, when you're like, hey, like this is how much it costs. This is how much, can you pay me? You forgot your payment. That stuff's a relief to not have to deal with that as much. And then like, having your training rate, it's just whatever the gym charges, you charge, back at the pro performance stage, your cut is your cut. There I'm like it's different because I'm salary, so like I work just hours, which is another weird thing. So in your head, the incentive of like getting PT clients versus teaching a class versus teaching a training group, it don't matter who walks through the door. My rate is my rate and stays the same. So those things I don't, it's different being an entrepreneur and getting into that. You're like, you're salary man, you're a strength coach for a team, so you just put the hours in, you just get after it. So
yeah. No, I mean, to be honest with you, that's one of the things that I don't love about like that. I don't love about the private sector and things like that. Is I don't love the idea of having to market and having to go out and basically where your paycheck is depending on does your clients actually show up or did you go out and put an ad on the radio to get people, you know what I mean? Like I just don't. And I'm also like I'm on social media, but I'm also not like I'm not a social media type person. So it's one of those things where like for me to have to go out and hustle and do that stuff like you had to do, like that's just not how I'm wired. Like I don't want to do that stuff. I like being able to do this. I know that if I walk in here at 6:45, the freaking on Monday mornings, the women's volleyball team's going to walk in at 6:55 and they're going to be ready to go. And they're not going to be late. And we do still have athletes show up late. Don't get me wrong, but like the teams that have the best team culture, like they hold each other accountable. Like I don't have to worry about like I don't punish anybody. The only thing that I do in terms of people being late is the football team. We send guys home. If guys aren't in the weight room ready to go when it's time we are ready to break it down, like we just kick them out. And that's the only thing I do. I don't do punishment conditioning. I don't do any of that stuff because I've told the coaches when I got hired, like it's not my job. If this is important to you and to them, you as the coach and them as the athlete, if it's important to them, I'll be in there when their lift's supposed to start. You make sure they're in there when lift's supposed to start.
I love that. That's
we do face a couple issues with like some of our smaller sports because like a lot of kids are coming from class and things like that. So we always give them a
Yeah.
little bit of leeway there, but it is a pain in the ass. Like, especially when you got a big
Yeah.
group like football. Like I can't have 30 football guys. I can't have 5 guys coming in late. Like it's just
Yeah.
now you got 5 different warm-ups going on. It's just a
Yeah. Yeah.
cluster.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where like we do make a little bit of exception for some of our smaller teams.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, some of those teams are like the tennis team where they're like literally 90% of the team's international and like
Yeah.
they're just scatterbrained as it is anyways all over the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely something that like there's obviously pros and cons, and I talk about that with our internships kids because there's always every it's funny like and I definitely thought about this when I was an intern and still not something that I wouldn't be ever eventually opposed to, but every intern that we get always is like, well, I want to open up my own gym. I want to be the next like Barbas. I want to be the next Eric Cressy. I want to be
Yeah.
the next Mike Boyle. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's awesome. That's an awesome goal. But
Sounds good. Yeah.
do you have a lot of overhead money to get a startup? Do you have a lot of
Hmm.
time? Are you expecting to have a wife and a kid? Are you expected to like, make no money at all? Are you expected to not cut yourself a paycheck
Yeah.
for the first like 10 years? Like,
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are you
Yeah.
okay with that? Are you okay with that before you actually start making real money? And then are you also okay with like, hey, you just set up shop and now, you're 3 months into having your own private facility and somebody else just put a CrossFit gym down the street. Now all your
Yep.
clientele leave. So speaking of
Exactly.
CrossFit, I did want to ask you this too, because, as much as I probably talk shit on CrossFit and
Yeah.
I think there's great aspects of it. I think there are, but
Yeah.
I've definitely talked shit on it. What do you think is something that when you were doing CrossFit, obviously you talked about the camaraderie and the community aspect. And I think that's number one thing it has going for it is it is a great aspect, a
Yeah.
great community. It's you're in it, you're working as a team, training as a team, competing and stuff like that with each other. And there's a lot of accountability that goes along with that. But
Yeah.
from just a training standpoint, are there some things that you've taken away having been like a CrossFit athlete and working training CrossFit athletes to be better? Is there some things that like positive that you took away from a training mentality, a training approach? And then what would be maybe some things that if you were going to train a CrossFit athlete now or quote unquote a hybrid athlete now, is there
Yeah.
anything that you would be like, hey, let's definitely not do this. Let's definitely not
Yeah.
like do just 3 WODs a day. Like we have to still do some basic strength training. We have to still do some basic like conditioning. Like you can't
Yeah.
just do the WOD and expect to like be like the next like freaking whoever. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even know who wins anymore. I kind of stopped. Well, I
Yeah.
do like it, but
Yeah.
the next
Me
Rich
neither.
Froning,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So what are some things like positives that you took from your time in CrossFit and working with CrossFit athletes that you still kind of utilize today? And what are some things that you would definitely like not want somebody to fall victim to if they were to start trying to compete in CrossFit?
No, man. Yeah. Really good question. But the biggest thing, man, I think for me that I took away from CrossFit was metabolic conditioning. Like that to me, I really like. I love the constantly varied aspect of it in the sense of like you can do pretty much intervals within a certain period of time and have a skill to it, right? And what I mean by skill is like you can have a flow that is unlike me telling you to go do a boot camp class that's 45 seconds on, like Tabata style. So CrossFit, what they did really well was they made a lot of people who would go to a gym and do 4x10s, and they turned them into people who could do ladders of like 20, 15, 10, 5. Like they did a really good job at condensing a lot of workload in a small period of time. And I think the bones of CrossFit in the sense of like metabolic conditioning and structure is actually pretty good. Like you're taking some athletic aspects of training, and I mean by that, I mean like box jumps, lateral movements that are over length, not in stationary positions, wall balls, like stuff like that, that I would consider not your typical gym goer would do, and then put it into a synchronized rhythm workout. But I think that's about 20% of CrossFit. Like I think the 80% of CrossFit is like really written bad. It's structured terribly. I think it's set up for failure. I think it's set up for burnout. I think it's more is more. And I think that CrossFit is one of those things where it just runs people into the ground. And everybody who does CrossFit has an expiration date. That's the basis. Like I wish I knew that back when I worked at Pro. And it's funny, when I left Pro, I figured all that out. Like I stopped doing the 2 workouts a day. I stopped doing, and I really did less is more. I think when I started the next place, I went to Ridgeline down the street, and I think I started doing about 30% CrossFit, 70% strength and conditioning. And that's when I got really, really good at CrossFit. That's when I started doing, you know, these crazy movements, and I started having this crazy work capacity. And I think CrossFit just has it a little backwards. I think if they would individualize the days of conditioning versus strength, that they would see a lot more turnover. I think if they were to concise their conditioning days into aerobic capacity days, into interval days, into threshold days, I think that they would have a lot longer lifespan in training. And even the strength work, I think what CrossFit does is it is the probably biggest component of interference effect that's ever been made. And I think that it was so new for so long that you didn't see it. But then you got people now who are on their 10th or 12th, 15th year of CrossFit who have this tremendous amount of interference effect and they have crazy diminishing returns. Like they're doing more work to get less back from it, which means they have to do even more work to see something. So I think for a lot of people who are, swear and live by CrossFit, that they're so stuck in the loop that they have what I call like imposter syndrome for CrossFit, so that you can't go into a gym unless you have the same stimulus that you once had. It's almost like people who do drugs, right? They're like keep chasing that high, and you never not have it because you never have the same effect you had when you were 6 months in, a year in, 2 years in, because it was so new to you. So if CrossFit would peel back all the layers, or go back to conditioning days on conditioning days, strength days on strength days, mobility days on mobility days, and individualize our training, and then build out periodization to where we're not doing 5x5 front squat week one, and then we don't ever see front squat again until week six. But we also do a shit ton of squat cleans and we do all these different thrusters, and we spend time in that position, but we never actually dedicate strength to it. We're just doing multiple days of capacity work, and it's under a crazy load. So now we just have all these different things going against us. So I think if CrossFit actually peeled it back and did those things, I think they could have a lot of benefit, because CrossFit has its place like every other fitness avenue. Yoga, Pilates have their place in the realm of fitness, right? In the what I call the belt of strength conditioning, which is the basics. And I think it's, if you're strong and you're in good shape, that's the end of the day. Like that, there's nothing better than strength conditioning. And I would argue anybody on that and tell me what's better for this form of practice. But I think if CrossFit were able to put themselves in that belt of strength conditioning and find a place, I think it could be a lot better. But I think I don't take back my time. I haven't done CrossFit in months, by the way. I haven't done CrossFit in probably a year of actually like practicing. I've done components of it, done some metcons, but I think about a year and a half ago, I stopped like being competitive in it and just doing like conditioning days in CrossFit. And even that, I haven't done CrossFit in probably 5 or 6 months. But
Yeah.
I think if CrossFit were to do that, it would be much better. But I think the one thing that I really enjoyed about CrossFit was it taught me the ability to tap into a different realm of suffrage in the best way, like a work capacity way. Like I know now more about like my threshold, my gears, how to double down on repeat intervals that I do because I've suffered in workouts, and I know my body way better now because I've done some pretty crappy workouts for longer periods of time, or I've done short burners that I can't feel my chest. So I've learned that. And I think CrossFit does a good job of teaching that. I don't think any other sport can force you into those dark places, besides CrossFit. So that's pretty much the me and my buddy, my mentor, we talk about that all the time. We have these deep conversations about CrossFit's got it so wrong, and we wish we knew that back then. But people still are in that. They're still in that realm of like wanting to be dead in a workout.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly like, and I think when we were back when we were training together, like that was something that, you mentioned like the conjugate system, like that was something that helped because that's what the conjugate system is. It's really based off like a constant variety. That's what it means. It's making like just do the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah,
But there still has to be some period to where you're having adaptation, and it can't be so
yes,
much variety that you never have a chance to adapt to it and never have a chance to get good at anything. And I think the biggest thing, and you look at the guys that have won the games, and I remember watching, I think it was like a documentary on, it was either Kalipa or Noah Olson back in the day. And like they had a strength coach. Like they weren't working.
yeah,
They didn't just show up to their
no,
gym. They didn't just show up to their gym and just do the
yeah,
CrossFit WOD that was on the wall. Like they
yeah,
they they had a strength coach that was like, okay, today's going to be like your heavy, like powerlifting type day. And then we're going to
yep,
finish later tonight. We're going to finish with something that kind of, like you said, we're not going to go and run 3 miles because it's going to take away from what we did this morning. But we're going to
yeah,
it might be a Metcon. It might be a short, quick
yeah,
anaerobic, threshold
yeah,
stuff. And then the next day we're going to start off with like a long run. And like they basically treated it as if you're you're trying to push every skill up as opposed to just let's just make
yes,
it really hard. Like so there's
yeah,
again, it's one of the things where like the good thing is CrossFit got people that would never ever have grabbed a barbell in their life to
yep,
grab a barbell. It definitely did that. It also
exactly, yep,
probably probably also got a lot of physical therapists, like a lot of insurance money in their pocket as well. But
Oh, it
um,
definitely did. It kept people in
but yeah,
business
it's
for
like
sure.
it's one of those where you look at it now as a sport. And like I don't care that much about CrossFit really, but I do think it's something to think about because even as a strength coach, like I can look at a sport like CrossFit, just like
Yeah,
I would like a sport like basketball. Basketball is a weird sport because there's an aerobic component, there's a speed component, an anaerobic power component, right? A
yeah,
plyometric component, a strength component, especially the way the game's played now. Like
yeah,
guys need to be bigger. Guys need to be. You're trying to
yep,
make your forwards look like a safety nowadays. Like they have to be
yeah,
big and strong and have like enough meat on their bones to to bang around underneath the basket. So it's like
yeah,
I wouldn't train a CrossFitter any differently, or I wouldn't approach them any differently in terms of my periodization, my program design, as I would any other athlete. But
yeah.
like you said, somehow that got kind of like lost in the shuffle 15,
Hmm.
20 years ago. And now you're kind of maybe seeing where people are starting to be a little smarter about it. And,
Yeah.
and again, that's why I like talking about it because it is a sport in and of itself. It's the sport of
Hmm.
doing as being as
Exercise.
efficient
Yeah,
and as you can. So that's no different than how I would break down a basketball player and what they need, or how I would break down a football player and what they need, or a swimmer
yeah.
or whatever it is. So what were you going to say though?
No, so it's a sport of exercise, which is crazy in itself that you're able to race in exercise. Like it's like
Yeah.
the one thing you as strength and conditioning coaches is like you think you teach movement, you teach control, you teach symmetry, and then CrossFit kind of threw that out the way. But there's some people who have these unique skills to be able to do all those things in unison and for time, and it's like it's unique in itself. It does breed some unique athletes, but to say CrossFit is a sport is crazy in itself. But it's true. You're right.
Yeah.
It is its own sport.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's one of those where like again, there's aspects of that I like. I mean, we do every summer here. We always do like, and we make because we probably have anywhere between 15 to 20 plus athletes that stick around over the summer. Some of the kids are local, and then every Friday we always do like a Friday finisher. And what's
Yeah,
funny is the guy that usually wins it is one of our basketball players because he's just
really,
like the overall fittest dude. Like he runs like a
that's true.
freaking 5 minute mile. He's super
Yeah,
athletic. He's fast. Like he could probably play any sport he wanted to play. Like
yeah,
in fact, his older brother plays professional basketball, right? His older brother played at Fairmont. He plays at professional basketball now. The
yeah,
younger brother is probably going to have the same opportunities. Like he won. We kind of keep score throughout the entire summer, and like he won most of the events, like all summer. Like I think he had double digit wins, and everybody else had like less than a
that's
handful of wins.
crazy.
And it's
Yeah,
because it's like it's not because he's the strongest guy. It's because he's like he trains like an athlete, and he's good at a lot of
yeah,
different stuff. Like he's got good quality.
yeah.
So, um, in terms of like your kind of current client population? I know you said like you don't really set your schedule, so I'm sure it could change like, you know, different times of the year. But what is like your big like clientele right now? Are you working with mainly Gen Pop? Are you getting a lot of athletes in there? Like what are you kind of seeing a lot of at Barwis? And then I was gonna also ask like how much I meant to ask this earlier. Let me ask this first actually. How much of the brick built strength stuff are you still doing? Like how many clients and athletes are you still working with there? Because I know you had some Gen Pop, but I know at one point in time you were talking to me, you're working with like a professional football player, I believe, right? A
Yeah,
quarterback
yeah.
at one point in time. So how much are you still doing with Brick Built? How many athletes are you kind of still working alongside or working like with there and helping there? And then what has your clientele kind of been mostly at Barwis?
Yeah, man. Great question. So, full circle moment. Actually, the guy I had called you about years ago, man, about that. He's killing it right now. Jacoby Brissett. Shout out to Jacoby for the Cardinals, man. He's starting. But this was the first year him and I trained in person. Kind
Oh
of
wow.
crazy. I moved to West Palm a couple years ago. He's from West Palm. So it was like this cool like moment where he came back home for off season and I got a chance to train him his entire off season. And shout out to him. He busted his butt, and this is his best season he's had. He's leading the NFL and percentages and completions, so he's killing it. But anyway, man, um, my clientele online has always been around the just your really like your high performers, right? Like some doctors, some lawyers. I have some people who like are just high performers in that sense. Now I've kind of condensed it. Every couple years, it kind of changes. Like I had a whole season of like a lot of CrossFitters because they saw me posting about CrossFit and training that way. And then obviously every gym I've been in, I've been able to kind of like get clients in that sense of like to see the way I'm over in the corner doing strength and conditioning and they see me do a WOD every other day and like this guy's healthy, he's performing well in the WODs, but he only does WODs 3 times. It's like so it's like one of those like you're your own poster child. So up until I stopped doing CrossFit, I had a lot of CrossFitters and my high performers. But the last couple, last year and some change, I've kind of cut that number down to where I'm keeping it, you know, the lowest. It's been around 10 or less clients now online, especially now that I'm in a brick and mortar. I don't really promote brick built in that sense anymore, just because of competing clause in that sense, and it wasn't something that they were super excited about or nervous about, right? Which is normal. But for me, it was one of those things where I wanted to stay in the game of online training. I mean, I've been training some of these people for 6 years, and it's never met them face to face. I've only been in communication through our online platform and messaging and video uploads every single week. So you build this relationship with them. So I kept them in that sense. And then a couple of years ago, I got really heavy into nutrition. So I have some nutrition clients that I worked with on the side and deal with them in nutrition because I myself went through a whole transition of working with my own nutrition and getting a coach. I've had the same coach for 6 years. So, all in all, I try to keep it under 20, like that I have my hands on in that pot. And for me, that's super manageable because I have some people who just do weekly training, right? Like I create a generalized strength conditioning program. They pay X amount of dollars a month, super cheap, and they can come and go as they please, right? Like they only get the mass majority of messaging, and so I include them in that. There's a handful of people who do that, but then I have my core group of people that I've been working with for like the last years. It's probably like around 5 to 7, on and off throughout the year, that I continue to program for all year round. Deload, reload. They go out of town, they travel. I create all that for them. So those people I've been with for like the longest. Um, with Brick Built, and they're all, except for like one or two, are general population high performers. Just two people who kind of dabble into CrossFit, but they come to me like when they first started, they were like heavy CrossFit. Now with me, they're about 60-40 strength conditioning to CrossFit, which is great. And then in Barwitz, I have a unique style of like people. Like I came to them and they saw my resume and they saw it was like 3 CrossFit gyms on there. So now I became a group fitness guy. So I helped Barwitz revamp their adult classes, and I turned it into a strength and conditioning class. It was called boot camp. Now it's a strength and conditioning class. I've kind of remodeled that and turned it into exactly that. We have 3 strength days a week. We have 2 conditioning days a week. Nothing interferes. You don't condition on the days you do strength. You don't do strength on days you do conditioning. So I've been able to do that. I teach most of those classes throughout the day. I think I have like 4 or 5 a day I teach, but the rest of the day is filled with group fitness. And since like athletes, we have like baseball teams that come in. We'll have individual clients that come in that are all sports specific. I have like 2 or 3 general pops, but for the most part, it's athletes in PT sessions and then adults in the adult classes, which is pretty cool. We're going into a unique season for NFL off season. So right around January, we'll get an influx of guys for the NFL Combine. So we'll prep them all the way through Combine. This is my first year with them, so I'm excited to see how we implement that. We're going to start working on the NFL Combine prep, how we have them, 2 groups or 1 group twice a day. We'll do recovery stuff. We'll do all their work, and we're kind of like having meetings on that and how what that's going to look like. When I first came in, we were finishing with the NHL guys. We had about 15 to 20 NHL guys that were coming into training with us. That would come 5 days in a week, 5 days a week. We train them, once in the morning, and then send them out. They also did a lot of ice stuff too, which is pretty cool. Like they would go and Mike's big on the ice, so he would do a lot of actual speed training on the ice, which was the first time I've ever seen that with the actual strength and conditioning coach. I thought it was pretty unique. Mike's got like a skating background, so he was doing a lot of that work. And we'll have that, and then we'll do NFL Combine into NFL prep. So we'll bring all the NFL guys who are in the off season. They'll come to us right around February, March time, and then we'll have them all the way up until OTAs, and then OTAs as OTA overlaps with NHL. MLB kind of bleeds throughout the year. Not much from what I'm hearing. But that's usually what it goes. We'll have college group that come back. And the college group we usually do with our strength and conditioning athletes, we put them all in the same group, which there's not enough to be like, this is a football college group. So we do generalized strength and conditioning for them. And then branch off from there. They have individual sport specific sessions that they could do with like me, because I'm a football guy. We have a basketball guy on staff, baseball, so on and so forth. So that is probably something that we'll do. But for the most part, man, it's just like high performer general athletes. You're talking about like, it's Florida. So you got this guy who's crypto king millionaire comes in and gets back rubbed down a couple times a week for training. And then you got your NFL guy who comes in, and you got your, NBA guy. So that's cool to kind of see the influx of clientele that comes in out that door. But for the most part, man, I just focus on, high performers, athletes, and I have a little bit of like adult classes that are general population, man. But it's nice because I get a chance to have a wide variety of clients that I probably never would interact with by
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that sounds pretty cool. Just having that big diversity in like the population, because I mean, there is something to be said about like always being stuck with working with the same, professional. Like, and nothing wrong with professional
Yeah,
athletes, but like you work if you've worked with, and I've been at private gyms where I've worked with a handful of professional athletes and been fortunate enough to work with that. But like you work with like 10 pro baseball guys like over and over and over again. Like there is like a redundancy there. Like they're all
yeah,
kind of wired the same and they all act the same and do the same thing. And then you get, 10 basketball guys are very similar. Like again, when I was
yeah,
at P3, we had like a group of baseball guys and a group of basketball guys that would come in and like the groups were different, but like everybody in the group was kind of like the same dude, right?
yeah,
So being able to have like, a middle-aged like guy and a middle-aged mom and, a lawyer and a doctor all come in and working with that. And then obviously working with the people remotely as well. And like being able to
yeah,
kind of have those relationships, like that's pretty cool to do. And again, that's something that I really like about being at Fairmont is, I'll have football like 6 to 9 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, Friday during the spring. So I'm like
yeah,
in there screaming my head off for 3 hours. And then like the freaking golf team will walk in, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like, you know what I
yeah.
mean? And like
Different hat. Yeah,
at this point, it's like I'm not screaming my head off anymore. Now I'm actually kind of laughing my head off because like those dudes, especially the men's golfers, like they're the biggest like shit talkers. Like they talk so much shit. Like it's freaking funny. So it's one
yeah,
of those where like I love having that like almost polar opposite of mentality. And like, you know
yeah.
what I
That's
mean? Like
awesome,
like
man.
like it's cool to have that. So it's good that you're getting that. Um I'm really interested once you guys. So you said you had a bunch of NHL guys in back when you first started. Then I'm really kind of
Yeah,
interested in eventually maybe next year when you get another round of it and kind of talking to you about it because an area that like I don't know enough. Like I did one
yeah,
episode with a guy that's in the NHL, but I don't know enough about working with NHL guys. I'm super intrigued because I think they're kind of freaky athletes that people don't realize. Like
bro. They're
they kind of
sleepers.
like they kind of sleep. People sleep on them for sure. Like they're freaky
Oh yeah.
athletes,
I
and
slept on them until I got in the gym and I was like, oh, these guys were dogs. Like
yeah,
the guy
yeah.
you would never expect. You're like, that guy's a dog. And it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah, we'll
they're
definitely
like
talk shop, man.
they're like linebackers that walk around like they look like nerds, but they're
Yeah.
like linebackers.
Yeah. And
Like
they're mean as hell too. Like there's nothing that intimidates them. And we share a gym with the martial arts the Kill Cliff gym, all the UFC top
oh,
fighters.
really, really,
It's
really.
literally like our gym is like here, and then we have like it's like a conjoined gym. So it's two gyms that are side by side, and they have this huge octagon gym, which is amazing. I mean, if we worked there, I'd never see you because you'd be over there the whole time.
Yeah, 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 that sounds
But
awesome.
they come in. I mean, those guys are intimidating, man. Like, I mean, you're talking about the top card guys fight over there, so it's
Yeah,
cool. And they come in our gym and they work out. We get a chance to know them a little bit, but you got the NHL guys in there, and you got the UFC fighters. You're talking about two mean
yeah,
spits, man, and it's pretty
yeah,
cool to see them both
yeah,
competing. And it's just one of those places where if you don't got if your testosterone's low, you hang out in there a little bit, man. You'll be mean as you come, man. I was like, I'm actually moving some weight around. Like the
yeah,
testosterone's back. I feel good, man. But
yeah,
it's
yeah,
cool,
for
man.
sure,
We'll definitely talk about the
for
NHL
sure,
guys.
for
It's,
sure.
it's cool how they train.
The other thing you said that I gotta like take a little bit of a jab maybe at you with it. Speaking of fighting, is you mentioned you working with a nutritionist. Like, have they gotten you to eat any vegetables? Do you eat vegetables at all now?
Yeah, yeah, man, I do. You'll be surprised. I actually eat a good handful. I haven't had a salad, but I've eaten pretty much. I've tried every vegetable outside of cabbage. I've not eaten cabbage yet, but I've tried everything. Got a handful of greens. I got some broccoli in there, asparagus. I eat tomatoes now, which is crazy.
Yeah,
I eat a lot of random things, man. Like, I got to go
yeah.
back to my roots. I eat some collard greens now. I'm getting there, bro.
There,
I'm getting there.
I remember whenever you came to Morgantown and we were like chatting, I think we got sushi, right? It
Yeah,
was
we
sushi.
got
You
sushi or Thai
fucking,
or something like
you
that.
got,
Yeah,
yeah, you got a sushi roll and you picked out the vegetables out of it. You picked the
I
cucumber
did.
and the
I
carrot
did.
out of
Yeah.
the sushi roll. Like you were like, I'm
Yep.
not
I
eating
sure
these
did, man.
vegetables. Like that
Now,
shit's
now,
that
now
shit's
I eat them,
hilarious.
so that's good. Yeah. Hey, I'm
Um,
growing up on you, man.
yeah, I see that. You getting more than like 4 hours of sleep, or are you still getting 4 hours? Are you still running
Uh,
around on like
I
4 or 5 hours of
eat like
sleep?
six or seven now.
Yeah,
It's
that's
crazy. I
almost like
get up early now, which is good, but I get up early because I teach the classes. But I go to bed at like 8:39, man. I'm a grandpa now.
oh
I'm in
yeah,
bed. I get to bed at 8:39. I get up at like 5 every morning, ready to go.
yep. There you go, there you
Yeah,
go.
man.
Um, well, just kind of wrap up here. Just one last couple questions I got, and again, obviously this is like like a pretty unique and in a good way. And I'm saying that in a very good way. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because like it is a unique situation that you've been in with basically starting your own like online business, being in multiple private facilities and working, including like the CrossFit facilities. So you've been around a lot of that, like that realm. So in terms of like, as a young coach, if you could go back, when you were graduated college, like you said, you never really even took like S&C serious when you were in college because it was just something that you had to do, not something that you
Yeah.
like you got to do, and like you weren't invested in that as like your profession. But like if you were like if you were getting an intern or getting somebody coming to you for advice, like what would be like the types of things that you would tell them to try to do, like physically go do versus like also like, hey, like build these qualities to be better, like whether it's like a time management thing or whatever it is, like what would be like your biggest like piece or pieces of advice for somebody young, and maybe not even that they want to go into working in the private facilities, but just in general, like somebody, like if you were to talk to yourself, 10, 11 years ago now, and you knew you wanted to be a strength coach working in the performance realm, like what would the biggest advice that you would give yourself or give some up and coming strength coach?
This is a really good question, man. I actually, until I read this one, I never thought about this particular question until now, man. But I think the first thing I would do, man, would be like, don't say yes to everything. The no's that you say is more important than the yeses. I think when you're starting off as a personal trainer or strength and conditioning coach, you think every opportunity that you have is going to be the only one, and you think that, like most things, if you don't have clients, you don't eat. And I think we're so caught up in chasing that you say yes to a lot of things. You stay longer places than you should, um, and you spend a lot of time like your head in one direction instead of like kind of looking around you and seeing what problems you can fix. So the first thing I would do is tell people like your no is more important than your yes. The second thing that I would say is like try everything, try every round, every practice, every form of fitness. And what I mean by try is not only like physically go try them, but like like practice and like train in those rounds, like train people, um, you know, get trained by somebody who's that kind of coach, and see how you like it, see how you respond to it, see if you can interpret what the dialogue is about training. I think the cool thing about fitness in itself is that there's so many different languages in fitness. Like there's a different way to do speed, there's a different way to do strength conditioning, powerlifting. There's different languages across the board, and I think when you're in your own, you think that the other ones are wrong. You spend a lot of time being like, well, that's not right. You pick apart it. But the older I get, man, I don't think there's a wrong way to train anybody. I think there's no bad exercises either. I think it's just, should I be doing that one right now? Right. I think so. I would tell myself that, like, there's, early on when you're in a gym where the language is the same, you look at, like, we shared a gym with a CrossFit gym for a long time, so we would be like, oh, they're hurting themselves. Until I went over there and I'm like, oh, like this isn't so bad. There's not as long wrong. It's a bad example, but you kind of tell yourself that, well, the way you're doing things is the only way to do them. So I would definitely tell myself to try everything. Get involved in each one of them. Um, and the other thing I do is, like, after that would be directly like find which one sticks out to you and find a principle that you can marry. Like that's the principle, and I think you stay true to your principles. I think now being in the gym where I'm back on a team of younger people, right, and this is their first job, and I'm sure when you walked into pro 10 years ago, people would say the same thing about us, is that we trained too much alike, that whoever was the top dog, we did what they did. And I think that is okay sometimes, but I'm sure like on your staff, you're the top dog. So I'm sure you'll tell your guys, hey, go find what you like bring it back to me. We'll discuss it. I'll give you my honest opinion, but you stay true to whatever program that you do, right? As long as you're doing it intentionally, you have periodization, you have progression, you have adaptation, we can make it work, right? I think every exercise is designed to be either hard or to work in some capacity. And I think a lot of people turn their nose up like, oh, that's wrong. And, it's fun to tease and joke at stuff, right? That's what you do when you're in a round of practice. But I think for me, I would tell myself to stick to the principle that you enjoy the best and the one that tried and true. And then visit other methodologies, right? Like mix in some stuff and go through seasons. Like we talked about, be your own best client. But those are the things I think I would tell myself, and not be so worried about like knowing everything in the room. Like don't be so worried about what the textbook says. Don't be so worried about, I'm in this room and this guy has, 20 letters behind his name, can I have a conversation with him, right? Because you peek behind the curtain, as you know, a lot of these guys are just faking it. A lot of these guys are just fluff, right? Not everybody knows everything. So you stick true to whatever your niche is, right? If you're somebody who's really big on experience and applying, however you dissect whatever you're interpreting, whatever you're studying, and you're able to apply it, those are the best trainers to me. Not the book trainers. The book trainers are great. People who have science behind what they do is amazing because they're able to use the science and then directly apply it. But I think a lot of times God doesn't give with both hands. So most people can either take what they know, read about it, analyze it, and then you got the trainers who are in the field who are doing that. So to me, man, I think that's probably what I would tell myself, and just to enjoy it, man, and get a
Yeah.
mentor,
Yeah.
find a mentor, and have those conversations, man, and they will change your life, man. You were a mentor to me, man, years ago. You still are. I still look at you as one of the top dogs that I've ever met. I told somebody the other day, man, I was like, they asked me if I would ever open my own gym. I was like, no. I was like, no, but if I had to build a training staff and I listed everybody that I talked to, man, and you were in that lane, I was like, I would 100% work with Adam. I was like, he changed a lot for me when I was, early in the days. I was like, he was young like me, but he had an idea. You stuck true to your principles, even at that early age in our career. You had a principle, you had something you believed in, and I'm sure you probably still feel the same way about that methodology the principles that you trained with. So I tip my hat off to you, man. I'm
Yeah.
giving you your flowers. You're one of the best I've ever worked with, and one of the smartest guys I've ever been around. So
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And like, it's one of those where like, it's honestly weird. It doesn't make sense that it's been this long. Like it's, you know what I mean?
uh-huh.
Like, it's one of those weird things where like you saying that, I'm like, gosh, like it really has been like 11 years. And like, I do feel like I'm like a lot better of a coach. Like that's the crazy thing is like I
Yeah,
definitely knew shit back then, but I'm like, and the one thing that you mentioned too, because there was again, a lot of good info there. And the one thing that you mentioned there towards the end of like, constantly getting better, like the thing that I've probably gotten better at the most, like over the years, especially having been here at Fairmont and being in a big time, like kind of league, I don't want to overhype it, but in a bigger leadership role and like a
yeah,
managerial role is like, I read way less like exercise science, like strength and conditioning books now than I ever have. It's all my books now are like Jocko Willink books or like,
yeah,
like personal development, professional development type books, like
yeah,
leadership development books, because it's one of those where like at the end of the day, like if my interns or GAs or somebody does something wrong, like they're not going to get in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They're,
sure.
and again, I'm not saying that because I'm trying to like cover my ass. I'm saying that like it's one of those things where like being in a leadership role comes
Mhm.
with lots of consequences, like a
Yeah,
lot more consequences. So it's like a blessing to have the opportunity that I have to be where I'm at and have been able to work with you and all the coaches that have been along the way and all the coaches that are going to
yeah,
end up I'm going to work with. But one of the other things that you said about trying different things, like again, that's something that's huge. Like as much as we kind of bash CrossFit, like that
yeah,
is something where like those Friday challenges that we do, they're very CrossFit esque and they're freaking fun. And
yeah,
they show you kind of what you're capable of, and they show you like it's a
yep,
way to still get competitive. Like in the middle of the summer when you're not really, there's no reason to be competitive with anybody. Like it's a fun way to
yeah,
train. So it's something that it showed me like, man, like these are pretty fun. I like to be able to do these Friday challenges like more often throughout the school year. Like find a way
yeah,
to get our athletes to compete with each other. And we do that with one of our fundraisers actually.
yeah,
And then you were talking about like kind of staying rooted to yourself and but being willing to like step outside. Like that's one of the things where like I think every young strength coach, like at least I know anybody that played football, like I know I did. I thought I was for sure like the only thing I wanted to do was be a D1 college football strength coach.
yeah,
And again,
yeah,
no disrespect to any of them because that's a freaking amazing job. It's a hard job. It's a
yeah.
very like rewarding job because of how hard it is. But like, man, like, have you ever actually worked with a women's basketball team? Like, they're freaking awesome. Like, they're
Oh,
freaking
they,
fun. Like, have you ever worked with a Division II college volleyball team? Like, they're freaking awesome to work with. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, I love our football kids at Fairmont, but like, if you told me that I only had to work with like volleyball or basketball for the rest of my life, I'd be like,
yeah,
okay, that's fine. I'm good with that. Like,
yeah.
I'm fine with
I,
that. You know what I
I've
mean?
I've heard that from a lot of strength coaches in college. Like it's just like something about working with some of those different groups that, like you said, gives you perspective outside of the norm of like rah rah. Like football. Like we said, we're both
Yeah.
football guys. We love the sport, but it's like working with some of those more intricate, detailed groups. You learn more. You're able to be more hands on. You're able to have a
Yep.
bigger influence too in a
Yep.
strength conditioning round, and that's amazing. I've heard that from a lot of strength
Yeah.
coaches that in
So
that
yeah,
route.
it's like stay rooted to what your goals are and what you want to succeed, but like don't be afraid that sometimes you're gonna get like knocked off your path and like it's gonna actually
Yeah,
end up working out better for you or whatever it is. So all right,
absolutely.
Dom. I appreciate it, man. It's been an awesome conversation. We definitely need to
Uh,
like stay in touch a little bit more than what we have, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
definitely, man.
When do you come back very often?
I'll come back for Christmas this year, so I'll be back this year Christmas Eve, and
Okay.
I'll stay to that Monday, man. So I'll give you a shout. You know, you're right down the road. You living in
Yeah.
Fairmont too?
No, we're in Morgantown still. Like we're
Are you?
living in
Oh yeah,
Morgantown, and like our new house is gonna be in Morgantown, so we can definitely go
yeah,
grab something to eat at some point.
yeah. I'll give you a shout. I'll be there for a couple of days, man. So we'll definitely link up, man, and talk some more shop
Yeah. Is
and
is
just catch
is
up.
is Sydney coming with you too?
Yeah, she's coming back. Yeah, 'cause
We
she's
need
from
to.
Morgantown, so we'll be
Yeah,
there
that's what I thought.
definitely.
We need to try to just well, five of us. Ruby can be the fifth wheel. We need to
Yeah.
all try to get together and go eat something.
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
she'd be happy to put a face to the name. She hears me talk about you, man. So
Yeah, yeah.
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
All right, brother. I appreciate it. All
All
right.
right, man. I
Good talking to
appreciate
you. Thank
you.
you, sir.
See you, man.